Do you feel like you and your wife are constantly stuck in a cycle? Sometimes things are good and you're getting along and there's peace at home, but then there's a time where things get really bad. You're constantly arguing and you find it really difficult not to blow up. On today's video, we're going to be sharing with you 3 tips to help you stop blowing up during arguments. Now, if we haven't met each other before, my name is Luke Finn, and I'm the founder of the ARC system, where we help dads transform a marriage in crisis into a new unbreakable marriage. And today I'm joined by our ARC legends. ARC legends, assemble. How are all you beautiful motherfuckers doing? Great. All right, guys, let's get into our session then. The question that we have today, ARC legends, is from Daniel from the US. After 18 years of being together and 2 amazing girls, we have a very cold relationship. We get in a cycle because she doesn't hold back the criticism, then I can't take it anymore and I pop. I want to learn to lead my family from a place of peace and not be so defensive and reactionary. The problem is I don't know where to start and what I can do for her to actually notice the change. So first and foremost, Daniel, we just want to let you know that's totally normal and you are in the right place to get this handled. So we're going to help you today. And I think, guys, the first place that we want to start off here is let's explain what is a cycle. Daniel talked about a cycle in his relationship. What is a cycle, guys? Why don't we start off with you, Levia? How would you describe this cycle that he's talking about?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a roller coaster effect. You get in arguments and maybe you say things you don't mean, and it's just a cycle that negative energy builds, and you get offended, and whether you work a lot, you have kids, a lot of external factors that add to the stress and the fuel, but ultimately you get in this cycle that's a negative downhill spiral kind of deal, and hence erodes emotional safety in the marriage and causes frustration. So it's a pattern that many marriages probably go through.
Yeah. And how many of you guys have experienced that in your marriage, that negative cycle, right? Then my next question is, why do you think so many men don't get the help they need when they're going through this negative cycle? So Cowboy, why do you think so many men just sit it out?
I think there's more to the question, sorry.
Yeah, no worries, man. So the question is, why do you think so many men that are experiencing this cycle don't get help?
I think part of it has to do with they just sort of give up. They feel like that's just the way it is now, and they just shrug their shoulders and like, well, I guess I got to figure out how to deal with it this way. It's either going to go one way or the other eventually, and they just kind of like they take on a defeated mindset.
Right, giving up is definitely a big one. What about you, Night Rider? Why do you think guys don't do something about it when they're experiencing this cycle? Like Levia said, that so many couples experience this negative cycle of ups and downs.
I believe it's mainly because, as you say, this is a very common thing, happens in lots and lots of marriages, and men, they don't realise, so that they won't admit, they don't actually possess the skill set to negotiate and deal with what's in front of them, because when it comes along for the first time, that's what I mean. They don't have the skill set in their armory on the best, most effective way of how to address it, and they have to learn.
Yeah, and I think then the other part of this, guys, is maybe kind of gaslighting yourself that it will get better. I just need to hang in there, and it's going to fix itself. And we all know that that's just not the case. It's not going to get better if you're experiencing this up and down. So let's have a look at in a bit more detail of what this cycle looks like. So the cycle looks like this. So you start off, things are okay. Then you have an argument with your wife. Then there's eggshells. That's really not a nice feeling when you're at home, you can't speak, or maybe you're getting the cold shoulder, really unhealthy coping mechanisms to conflict. And so you feel like you're walking on eggshells, can't speak. And then things start to thaw, get a little bit better. And then you start talking again. You're like, oh, sweet, I'm back to the same point. We're going through a better phase. And then again, another argument, and then you're eggshell. So it keeps happening. It wears you down. And like Levia said earlier on, it's a downward spiral. If you're going through this, it's one of the symptoms that your marriage needs help. Like you're not in a great place. So let's move on. I'm sorry. And the only way, what's interesting about this is a cycle, guys. There's a pattern. And with all patterns, it's a dynamic. the only way to break a dynamic is by changing your behavior. It takes two people. So it takes two people to create a dynamic. So you on your own are enough to actually break this pattern. That's really important to know. Okay, next question. So guys, why do you think that we react defensively to criticism? And let's be also clear, this isn't just men. This is not a male issue. This is across the board. Why do people react negatively to criticism? So who would like to go first? Cowboy, you want to say what you think why we react negatively?
Because it's a perception that there's something wrong with you. Nobody wants to be told what they're wrong, that there's something wrong with them. Nobody wants to hear where they're falling short. I mean, most of the time we already know where we're falling short. We just simply don't want to admit it. And we definitely don't want our significant other to tell us, because that means they recognize it. And then we actually have to face it.
Gotcha. So we feel like we're failing. That's a big one, yeah. What about you, Levia? Why do you think we react defensively to criticism?
I think there's many reasons. I agree with Cowboy for sure. I think a lot of times we get offended, and that goes right back to the same point. You know, we don't want to deal with something that's there. Maybe it's a blind spot even, and we don't want to admit it. I think inherently, one thing is, I think as men, we get so caught up in the daily routine, and we're just exhausted. And so, you know, we don't want to deal with it, and we slough it off. And, you know, one of the things I used to tell myself in those cycles is, it's just a season. The kids will get a little older, and, you know, and we'll have date nights again, you know, or stuff like that. And so you get complacent, you know, as well. So.
Yeah, right on. What about you, Knight Rider? Why do you think we react negatively to criticism?
Yeah, following on from what both the guys have said, we act defensively because internally we take it as a bit of a personal attack. And then when we start getting defensive, we start not actually listening and addressing the issue that's really at hand. And we just start projecting issues back onto our significant other, as Cowboy used the description. And then that then just starts going back and forth. And then you're in that. You're in a different cycle then, but you're in a negative cycle, which is not getting anywhere.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, if you're enjoying this conversation that we're having today, guys, smash the like button and drop us a comment. This is a live discussion. Join in. This way, you're going to get the most out of our session. So let's take it back to the guys. So, and the topic that we have at hand is, why do we react defensively to criticism? So we got a lot of good points from our ARC legends here. There's a couple that I'd like to go in on, which Levia discussed at the beginning. So we react negatively to criticism when we're running on empty. If you're not getting enough sleep, if you are drinking, smoking, not taking care of yourself, you're going to be running on empty. And so a lot of people use alcohol or drugs to escape rather than dealing with the issues. And if you're running on empty, it doesn't matter how many techniques you're taught, it's going to be difficult to navigate that situation. And let's be honest, as dads, let's get a show of hands from us. We're all dads here. Who knows that feeling of running on empty? Right? It kind of goes part and parcel of being a dad. It's like it's the one resource that we have very little of is time. So it is challenging to manage that. But it is really important. That's something we need to address, is if we're running on empty, to take care of ourselves. But that's a huge one. That contributes to us taking things negatively, because when we're tired, we overreact. We're not calm, and we are usually not able to evaluate situations with a sound mind when we're tired. The second one is also a huge one: trauma. If you have trauma from your past, so for instance, your father used to give you a really hard time. So he used to always criticize you. You better believe as soon as your wife starts to criticize you, you're going to be bringing up all that shit from the past. And so you're going to react very strongly to even the slightest bit of criticism. The third one then, which is tied closely to the trauma, is false assumptions. So Cowboy hit on it at the beginning here. When you start to hear criticism from your wife, a lot of the time the assumption is, there's something wrong with me. And that's not necessarily the case. And let's also be honest here. Maybe your wife is really shit at giving constructive criticism. Let's just assume that. So she's not, because she hasn't dealt with her own trauma in her past and is not working on herself and doesn't know how to effectively communicate, her criticism, which might actually help the relationship, comes across badly, and then you overreact. So, but it is really important for you to work on yourself so that you don't have these false assumptions, because I've seen a lot of guys who haven't dealt with their trauma and their issues from the past. They're basically fighting shadows. They're facing shadows, they're fighting shadows rather than actually talking to their wife. They're hearing things that are not actually being said. And that's a dangerous situation. And the fourth one here is an inability to self-regulate our emotions. So all you guys have been in the ARC system for over a year, some of you for a couple of years now at this point. How big has it been for you to learn a process of emotional regulation? Cowboy, how has it been for you, man?
It has been one of the single most important and profound things that has happened in my recent life. Because you were talking about trauma.
Let's be clear, you have had a long life because you're 40 now. So let's all give him happy birthday, you old fucker. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. So you hit on it with trauma. I've experienced a lot of that trauma in my life, and it dictated and governed a lot of how I lived my life. And learning how to regulate that has been so profound and so key to not only the relationship that I had with my wife, which I should say that this time last year she was filing for divorce, and we're happier and stronger than ever. But it's not just with my wife; it's with my kids, it's with the people I interact with on a daily basis, my brothers, my sister, just everybody.
Because you're no longer dealing with shadows, right? As in, you're no longer fighting things that are not there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Right. What about for yourself, Levi? How key has it been to be able to regulate those emotions? How has your world changed since you've learned how to process your emotions?
Yeah, I think the first thing is stepping back and having space and working on yourself. For me, I got to that point where I had to be a growth mindset. I'm not perfect, but I'm willing to grow.
What? You're not perfect? This is fucking news to me.
I was,
get the fuck off this session if you're not perfect. We only have
No, but like in all seriousness, I used to react. I was in the military before, and I was in charge of a lot of people. I'm the boss of my own businesses, and it's easy to react from stress or whatever you want to call it. But I had to learn how to, reel that in and just check myself, right? And so, in taking the time working on myself, you learn how to communicate more effectively. You learn how to take a step back even, and learn the skill set, which I do credit the ARC system, a lot of the skill sets to just be able to process my emotions, number one, recognize them, accept them, and then just come back in a more positive light and be able to actually hear people and have clear communication. And so then you set healthy boundaries, but you also have healthier relationships. And I noticed that not only in my work with coworkers or employees, but also in my current relationship and so forth.
Awesome, man. So let's give Daniel then these 3 steps to stop blowing up. So here are the 3 steps. The first one, again, these are very straightforward, but you blow your mind how many people don't do this. The first step, self-care. You got to take care of yourself. If you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not eating well, if you're not drinking enough water, if you're not taking care of yourself, it doesn't matter what we teach you here in the ARC system, it's not going to be any use. You need to prioritize your self-care. And I think this is really a problem with all parents, is we're usually just trying to meet everybody else's needs, keep the family going, that we kind of forget that, well, if I'm not taking care of myself, how can I take care of everybody else? Everybody in the ARC system understands that we need to come first. So mental and emotional well-being needs to come first. And once you get that set up, then you can move on to the next step, which is step back and reframe. So the first part of stepping back is to buy yourself a little bit of time. So we all know that feeling, right, guys? When conflict happens, it can just be one word that your wife says, and it's like, okay, I'm gone, right? So the step back is all about saying, okay, wow, I'm starting to feel anger. So you don't need to express this verbally. You can if you want to, but this can also be an internal process where you go, oh, I'm starting to feel angry. And this buys you a little bit of time, because really at the beginning, as you're building up this muscle, because it is a muscle, this emotional regulation, it buys you a little bit of time. Maybe the first time you do it, you buy that couple of seconds and then you still blow up. That's okay, it's still progress. But over time, you end up not blowing up anymore, being able to stay calm, and actually just it takes a higher and higher amount of, so criticism or the stimulus needs to be much more intense before it gets you to that point. So we need to step back, label what we're feeling, and that will buy you a little bit of time, Daniel. The second part of this then is reframe. If your wife is coming at you with criticism, and we're going to assume, Daniel, that your wife doesn't know how to give constructive criticism. I don't believe that's what he's talking about here, is constructive criticism, which I think most of us can take. Although there are some people out there that can't find that also difficult to take. But we're going to assume that it's not constructive criticism, and it's probably communicated in a way that it's going to trigger him. So calling him names or going at him like he's got some kind of a fault in his personality. You need to reframe a mindset shift on this, and know that when your wife starts criticizing you, that she just doesn't know how to deal with this. She needs help. If you can shift from, rather than, hey, it's about me, oh my God, there's something wrong about me, and realizing, wow, the way she's bringing this across is not cool. So she's struggling here. She needs help. I wonder how I can help her, to be curious about it. And that's really key. The curiosity helps you move away from taking it personally. How many guys here have blown up because you've taken that personally? Well, for me, that was almost all the time at the beginning of myself and Evie's relationship. Was because I hadn't done enough work on myself. I was seeing every little bit of criticism as what I was hearing is, you fucking suck. You're not good enough. You're a failure. And when I look back at it, that wasn't the stuff that Evie was saying at all, but that was what I was hearing. And that's what I mean by, when you're fighting and wrestling with shadows and ghosts that are not really there. So that's really important. So step back and reframe the situation. And then finally, you need to regulate your emotions in real time. You heard about the guys today about how key that has been. You need to know how to bring yourself down to regulate your autonomic nervous system. I'm going to teach you that step-by-step approach to help you regulate your emotions on this next video.